Stand on any street corner in London and you'll hear a dozen languages in under a minute. Nearly 40% of Londoners were born outside the UK, making this one of the most diverse cities on Earth. But rewind 2,000 years, and this exact spot was nothing but marshland along a tidal river, barely inhabited, strategically useless to everyone except the Romans. So how did it go from empty marshland to the capital of the world's largest empire? The answer involves invasion, plague, catastrophe, and fire. Multiple fires. This is the complete history of London, from its very first brick to the city you see today. Let's go. The year is 43 AD. For Roman legions have just landed on the Kent coast, and they need a river crossing. They find it here, at the Thames's lowest fordable point before the estuary. Within a decade, Londinium is thriving. Merchants from Gaul, soldiers from Syria, traders from North Africa. The Romans build their bridge exactly where London Bridge stands today. Then, just 17 years after the city's founding, it burns. Queen Boudica of the Iceni tribe leads her army straight through it. Archaeologists have found a layer of red ash beneath modern London. Physical evidence of that destruction, still sitting under your feet. The Romans rebuild bigger and better. They raise a massive wall around the city. Parts of it are still standing 2,000 years later. At its peak, Londinium holds 60,000 people. Amphitheaters, bathhouses, forum. This is a proper Roman city. Then in 410 AD, Rome abandons Britain entirely. The economy collapses overnight. A city of 50,000 people shrinks to a few hundred squatters in the ruins. For the next 2 centuries, weeds push through mosaic floors as the empire crumbles. The Saxons who arrived after Rome left had no interest in the old city. They actually believed the Roman ruins were cursed, the work of giants, one poet wrote, and built an entirely new settlement a mile to the west. They called it Londonwick. That's where Covent Garden and the Strand are today. If you've ever sat in the Royal Opera House, you were sitting directly above Saxon London. By the 700s, Londonwick is booming. Amber from the Baltic, millstones from the Rhine, pottery from France. Then the Vikings arrive. In 842, Norse raiders sack the town completely. In 851, they do it again. King Alfred the Great finally retaliates. In 886, he retakes London and makes a brilliant strategic call. He abandons Londonwick entirely and moves everyone back inside the old Roman walls, which are far easier to defend. The abandoned Saxon town slowly earns a new name, Aldwick, Old Settlement. That name still exists today as a curved street in central London. By 1066, Edward the Confessor is dead with no heir, and England tears itself apart. Harold Godwin's son takes the crown. William of Normandy says it should be his. On October 14th, they meet at Hastings. By nightfall, Harold is dead and Norman rule begins. William the Conqueror doesn't trust London, so he builds 3 fortresses to keep it in line. The largest becomes the Tower of London, 90 feet tall, walls 12 feet thick. For 1,000 years, it will remain a symbol of royal power. Medieval London is cramped, chaotic, and increasingly rich. The merchant guilds, goldsmiths, fishmongers, drapers, grow so powerful that kings have to negotiate with them. When barons force King John to sign Magna Carta in 1215, London's support is decisive. London Bridge, rebuilt in stone between 1176 and 1209, becomes a city unto itself, lined with shops, houses, a chapel, a drawbridge, and the severed heads of traders displayed on spikes at the entrance. For over 600 years, it's the only Thames crossing in the city. Then in 1348, ships arrive at London's docks carrying rats. On those rats, fleas. In those fleas, Yersinia pestis, the Black Death. Within 2 years, between a third and half of London is dead. 80,000 people gone. Entire streets empty overnight. Mass graves dug in fields beyond the city walls. The city recovers. Slowly. But by 1381, something has shifted in the population. Peasants and workers, exhausted, overtaxed, march on London. They storm the Tower. They execute the Archbishop of Canterbury. A teenage King Richard II rides out to meet them, makes promises, then has their leaders hunted down and executed. But the ruling class never forgets what it saw. Ordinary Londoners discovering their collective power. In 1500, London holds about 50,000 people. By 1600, it's 200,000. By 1650, nearly 400,000. London is now the largest city in Europe, and it got there in a single century. The catalyst? Henry VIII break with Rome in the 1530s. He couldn't get a divorce, so he abolished Catholic authority in England, dissolved the monasteries, and seized their land. In London, that meant huge amounts of prime real estate suddenly became available. Aristocrats bought it. Merchants built on it. The city exploded outward. Under Elizabeth I, London becomes the cultural capital of the Western world. The Globe Theatre opens in 1599. Shakespeare is staging Hamlet, Othello, King Lear. The East India Company is founded in 1600. Empire is beginning. But London has always been a tinderbox. Timber-framed houses, thatched roofs, upper floors overhanging narrow alleys, nearly touching across the gap. Open fires in every building. No fire department. In 1665, plague returns. At its peak, 7,000 Londoners die every week. A quarter of the city's population, roughly 100,000 people, are dead by the time it passes. Then, on September 2, 1666, a fire starts in a bakery on Pudding Lane. It has been a hot, dry summer. Strong winds are blowing. The fire spreads faster than anyone can contain it. For 4 days, London burns. 85% of the walled city is destroyed. 13,000 houses, 87 churches, Old St. Paul's Cathedral. Remarkably, only 6 people die in the fire itself. But 100,000 are left homeless. Christopher Wren sees an opportunity. He proposes a completely reimagined city. Wide boulevards, classical architecture, open squares. It's rejected. Property rights are too complicated. Rebuilding is too urgent. Streets follow the old medieval patterns. But there's one lasting change. New regulations require brick and stone instead of timber and thatch, and Wren gets to rebuild St. Paul's Cathedral. His new dome takes 35 years and dominates the skyline to this day. 18th century London is the intellectual engine of the Enlightenment. Coffee houses function like the internet, the fastest way to spread ideas, news, and deals. Lloyd's Coffee House becomes Lloyd's of London. Jonathan's Coffee House becomes the London Stock Exchange. The city is growing in ambition as fast as it's growing in size. In 1735, Robert Walpole moves into 10 Downing Street as Britain's first prime minister. George III buys Buckingham House in 1761. It will eventually become Buckingham Palace. Westminster Bridge finally gives London its second river crossing in 1750, ending 6 centuries of single bridge dependency. After Napoleon's defeat in 1815, Britain is the dominant power on earth, and London is where the wealth flows. Banks, trading houses, shipping companies, money pouring in from India, the Caribbean, Africa. Then the Industrial Revolution arrives, and London transforms at a speed never seen before. In 1801, London has just over 1 million people. By 1851, 2.5 million. By 1901, 6.5 million. The largest city on the planet. The Victorians build on a scale that's almost impossible to comprehend. Trafalgar Square in the 1840s. The Houses of Parliament and Big Ben in the 1850s. The Great Exhibition of 1851. 6 million visitors come to see the Crystal Palace, an enormous iron and glass structure in Hyde Park that announces British industrial dominance to the world. The Underground opens in 1863, the first subway system in history. Tower Bridge is completed in 1894. Joseph Bazalgette's sewer network, still in use today, is built after the Great Stink of 1858, when Thames pollution forced Parliament to evacuate. But Victorian London is also a city of brutal inequality. The rich live in extraordinary comfort in Mayfair and Belgravia. The poor are packed into East End slums. Cholera kills tens of thousands. In 1829, Robert Peel creates the Metropolitan Police, the world's first professional police force, and gives London the nickname Bobbies. In 1888, Jack the Ripper murders at least 5 women in Whitechapel. He's never caught. The case becomes a symbol of Victorian London's dark underbelly, the shadow side of the world's most powerful empire. Charles Dickens writes all of it. The workhouses, the child labor, the slums. The whole contradiction of a civilization building the future on a foundation of desperate poverty. The 20th century humbles London. The First World War kills hundreds of thousands of young British men, though London's infrastructure survives. The Second World War brings the war directly to the city. Between September 1940 and May 1941, 57 consecutive nights and more, German bombers hit London almost every night. The Blitz. Entire neighborhoods are leveled. 1 million buildings are damaged or destroyed. Nearly 500,000 British lives are lost. Through it all, St. Paul's Cathedral stands. The photograph of its dome rising above the smoke becomes the defining image of London's defiance, and one of the most iconic images of the 20th century. Post-war London is broke, bombed out, exhausted. The empire is collapsing. India gains independence in 1947. Rationing continues into the 1950s. In 1952, the Great Smog, a lethal combination of fog and coal smoke, kills 12,000 people in 5 days. But London rebuilds. Again, the 1951 Festival of Britain signals a new beginning. And people start arriving from the Caribbean, the Windrush generation from 1948, from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, from Africa and Eastern Europe. London begins its transformation into the city it is today. The 1960s bring a cultural explosion. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Carnaby Street, Mary Quant. For a moment, London feels young again. The 1970s and 80s are harder. Economic decline. IRA terrorism. The Docklands fall into abandonment. Then Canary Wharf rises from the ruins. The financial sector booms. London reinvents itself as a global finance hub. The 21st century starts awkwardly. The Millennium Dome is an expensive embarrassment that eventually becomes the O2 Arena. But London keeps pushing. The 2012 Olympics transform East London, bringing investment and infrastructure to areas that had been neglected for decades. The city passes 9 million people, its highest population since before World War II. Over 300 languages are spoken here. Brixton's Caribbean culture. Southall's South Asian community. Chinatown. Turkish Dalston. Polish Hammersmith. You can eat food from any country on earth. Find a community from anywhere. The skyline keeps changing, the Shard, the Gherkin, the walkie-talkie. Traditional architecture sits alongside glass and steel. Controversial, constantly debated, but undeniably alive. London has survived Roman withdrawal, Viking raids, the Black Death, the Great Fire, and the Blitz. Each time it rebuilds. Each time it adapts. Each time it pulls in new people with new energy. That's what's made London London for 2,000 years. It's messy, crowded, expensive, and complicated. And it has been all of those things since before most countries existed. If you made it this far, thank you. Putting together 2,000 years of history in one video takes an extraordinary amount of research, and I do this because I genuinely love finding the threads that connect the past to the present. If you enjoyed this one, subscribing is the best way to catch the next deep dive. I post these regularly. And I'd love to know, what city should we cover next? Drop it in the comments. Until next time, we'll see you in the past.